Hey guys, Stu Darling from Unstoppable Force. Welcome to the podcast. Do you know what? I believe we can all break out of mediocrity. We can all reach beyond what we thought our limits were. And that's what we talk about on the podcast. We talk about being unreasonable. We talk about raising our standards. And we talk about delivering the ultimate sacrifice again and again. Enjoy. Welcome to this episode. I'm talking to Chef Justine Whitney. Justine is an Aussie who is living in California. Her chefing business runs private catering events for the great and good across Hollywood and across California. I met Justine a few months ago and realized that she has got such a great story to tell, and so important when the hospital industry is going through some really challenging times. If you're a follower of MasterChef Australia, with the death of the chef Jock Zonfrillo in the last few days, it's center of mind. We're going to talk to Justine about how she got into the business, why she loves it, but also some of the challenges that people who work in the industry are facing. Enjoy. So excited that we've got Chef Justine with us for this podcast. Justine, you are in Los Angeles?
Yes, I am, and thank you for having me.
I suppose a bit of a backstory. We met at the very end of a function that you were that you were catering for, when I was accosted by you, my wife Liz, and my coach Bo Eason's wife Dawn, with this idea of how our son was going to come and visit you and do a stage in your new place in Australia at some point. And I'm giving it, yeah, and Bo's trying to go to bed, and you and I are having a conversation in the doorway, and I just felt there was this connection that I was so excited to be able to invite you onto the TV show and hear about how did an Australian end up doing high-end catering in Los Angeles. How did it happen?
Well, it's actually a very good question. And yes, Bo, first of all, Bo always wants to go to bed. He always goes to bed early. How I got here is a really, I'll try to keep it in a nutshell for you so I don't bore you. But I was always working in the corporate world back in Australia. And then when I moved to the US, I was working for a corporate company called the Guitar Center at their head office. And I always went to the side of event planning, catering, food, taking care of people through food, because gathering was really important to me. I grew up gathering around our dining table, breakfast, lunch, and dinner with our family. And I eventually, in 1999, I said to my husband, look, would you think I was crazy if I went to culinary school? And he's like, well, look, give it a go. So, it was before the internet was really up and functioning really highly back then. So I read a book about culinary schools in America, and I figured out pretty quickly I couldn't afford to go. So they were anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 to go to Le Cordon Bleu or any of the schools. And I couldn't give up my job because I needed to pay rent and pay for food. So I found a small cooking school in Westlake Village where I lived, and they offered a pro series. And so I went in and talked to them and signed up. And I went on the weekends and at night after work. And I managed to wiggle my way into being a teacher's aide to get credits for the school. I ended up cooking with and cooking and assisting Wolfgang Puck, Ming Tsai, a whole bunch of beautiful chefs that were coming in from all over the US. And then in 2000, in January, I actually had the honor of cooking for Julia Child. So that was fantastic. Came out of cooking school, graduated, was pregnant. I was executive chef of my graduation banquet, and not feeling great being 3 months pregnant. So I decided instead of going into the restaurant business, I would start a small private chef catering kind of business to keep me going and make a bit of money. And I started cooking meals in people's homes, and then I got asked to do Passover dinners, and then I got asked to do small dinner parties on the weekend for certain clients, and it just started to grow. And it grew from there, and it grew into me traveling now with NFL players and race car drivers and NBA players and actors, and I have a blast doing it. It drives me nuts sometimes, and it's stressful as all hell, but I love it.
I think I just to back up again a little bit, Wolfgang Puck and Mung Tsai and I mean Julia Childs,
Yeah.
what an amazing experience from. I mean, obviously, I mean the shift from I think I might get into cooking to where you are now. What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned about food and humanity and what we feel about food? Are they the same across? Does it differ depending on who you're cooking for? What do you think?
To answer that question, the first thing I want to say is in regards to what I learned specifically with my cooking school, I didn't pay more than $3,000 to go to that cooking school back then in 1999, 2000. And I managed to work with some of these incredibly great chefs. It was the start of the celebrity chef movement. And the lady that owned the school was this institutionalized chef and well-known cook. I mean, she was just had this fantastic cooking store and school in Westlake Village. She brought in chefs from all over the world and all over America, and I didn't have to pay $30,000, $45,000 to have this great experience. So lesson number one, I think, is you don't have to go and pay for the high-end education to get something great from it. I really, really believe that. And I didn't have to give up my job. And I did eventually. As soon as I graduated culinary school, I went straight into cooking and started my business in 2000. The other things I've really learned from cooking is it's okay to make mistakes because you really do, when you cook, learn from your mistakes. And cooking for high-end clients, I find that when I cook for regular people that might have, good income and, they do treat you a little differently than, say, some of the higher-end, well-known, high-profile clients I have. My high-profile clients are mostly athletes, some of them who have just come from nothing and worked their way up. And they have so much respect and so much gratitude for what we do for them. And it's a really, really positive experience because we do go into high-end situations with people that don't treat us so well. And I've seen things happen to my staff where I've had to step in. And I've seen things happen that would make your hair curl. So I think the lesson I really learned from this is, people are good. And if you treat them right and you manage to sort out a stressful situation, because we're always going into a different home, a different circumstance, packing up. It's like moving house every time you go and do an event, People are good. And if the situation is not working well, you just need to step in and sort it out. You just have to go through the process and figure it out. You cannot let it stress you out. You've got to take a deep breath.
You've raised, I mean, the whole being unstoppable, and the 3 steps to being unstoppable is being unreasonable. And you looked at the not normal way potentially of going into chefing and saying, right, I'm not going to cordon bleu, I'm not going to give up my job, I'm going to do it this way. And the result was that you got such an amazing experience that then led on to where you are. But then from dealing with challenging clients, let's call them, or not so challenging clients, you have a standard and you are introducing them to your standard. You're raising your standard, say, no, this is the way that it happens with me. And it gives, I'm quite sure it's given you the joy of other experiences that resulted in, I now get to work with these people because my standard was here.
And I think that's really true because if you are stressed out or if you are making mistakes, and in the beginning, I mean, it wasn't all perfect. It wasn't, easy going. So if you did make a mistake and you did feel stressed, it would show and your standard would drop. And so the client would pick up on that. So you always have to be, my motto too, and my husband will stand by me on this, is you have to be over-organized. You have to be completely a time control freak. Everything about cooking is timing. And you have to be so organized going into people's homes, taking everything in, making sure you have everything, the timing's right. Your staff arrive, you do this, you set up, you get everything ready, greet guests, and then you serve maybe an 8-course dinner. Your timing has to be so important. So if you don't have that down, something will probably go wrong. So I always say to my staff and to my chefs that work with me, always be ready for the unexpected. Because if you are, then you'll be able to handle it when it happens. And that's really, really important in what we do. And specifically when I travel and I have to pack food for 8 days and go up, to a different state and live in a house with people I don't really know and cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner for them. And I take my staff. You have to make sure you have everything covered, because you don't have the time to be running to the store all the time or going out and doing things, and you have to have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed, because if they add people or someone shows up with a dietary restriction, you have to be able to know how to put together and make it all happen and come together so they don't know anything's changed and everything they ask of you is yes.
I think, you talk about, a guest coming in or someone having, dietary requirements. Even just that extra glass of wine can sometimes become a challenge. And having seen the way that you guys actually operated when wine was flowing, one thing you've just caused me to reflect. When I talk about leadership, when I talk about being unreasonable, I use my own example of special operations and in the military, my covert experience. But I always say that if I had to choose, if I didn't have my soldiers around about me, the next place I would go to find someone who could do the job is into the kitchen. Go and find a brigade of chefs, because a good brigade of chefs, the organisation is just phenomenal, so great that actually the head chef, the executive chef, doesn't need to be in the kitchen. They can be standing on the pass because you've done your work beforehand.
Yes, but I will never leave the kitchen. Again, people are paying for my name. People hire me for my name. So I'm at every event. So sometimes, just to go sideways a bit, sometimes we used to get so busy in December that I would book 3 events a night, for example. So we'd have like 6 events in one weekend, and I would figure out a way with the client to work with the client where I'd stagger the events so I could be at every single one. And then I'd put my great staff in place. I'm also a great believer that you are only as good as the people around you. So when people say, oh, she's fantastic and she does such a great job and keeps it all together, it's not just me. It is the people that support me and come along on the ride with me. And I have a couple of people that have always taken this ride with me, and I couldn't do it without them. So I really need to acknowledge Frenchie, and then my last chef, Chef Alex Saavedra, who is brilliant. And, these people step in and they can do what they need to do until I show up and then do the final execution, or I can go in and set them up, leave, and then come back. So it's the people around you, and I can't take credit for, everything. And I never will, because those people, we work, sometimes I'll have up to 15 people on staff with weddings and different things that we do. And it's every single person has a place and they contribute something.
And I'm quite sure that not only do they have their place, they also know when to step up, step across, step in. I was always the first one off the helicopter, but the guy behind me knew exactly what my job was, just in case I didn't get off the helicopter. Yeah, and even if I wasn't in command of the operation, the guys around about it did, so that we could, as you say, come in, show that it's your gig, but you're surrounded with the best people.
Yes. Kitchen choreography, we call it.
I love that. Just maybe shifting this a little bit, and we spoke about this before we started recording. Here in New Zealand and in Australia, the latest series of MasterChef has just aired, and interestingly, one of the contestants this year left last year's competition due to mental health issues. You then run into this year, and those who are following it will know that Jock Zonfrillo, who has been one of the great chef, has led the team of 3 judges, died just before the program aired. And whether this was the reason, but Jock spoke about in his book Last Shot the struggles he's had with mental health and with drug abuse. With your team across the industry, it's obviously a challenge. How do you manage it? How do you lead it within your kitchen with your team?
Well, first of all, I just want to acknowledge how great a chef Jock was, and he was really, really brought something fantastic to MasterChef. It was shocking to see that come up all over social media last week, or the week before. And just, I just hope his family's okay, and just really devastating, news. I see people struggle. We have a pretty tight group of people. I do know that if there are struggles with some of my staff, they usually don't stay too long. I've got to be honest with you. They're not really, I want to say, cut out for the kitchen or cut out for joining a busy, stressful group, and team like what we do. But I have seen most of my staff are pretty well adjusted. I know some of them a couple in the past have had some alcohol issues, and we've addressed them. Some have been great about it and worked on themselves. Some haven't so great and walked off the job. After I approached one of my chefs we'd been caught drinking on the job a couple of times. And there was clearly something going on that they wouldn't let me into or wanted help from me. So they ended up just walking off the job. And it wasn't a great time because it was 150 people rehearsal dinner, and then the next day we had a 100-person wedding. So, those things happen, and again, you have to be over organized, because if you're not, you won't be able to get through it without ripping your own head off. So it's very difficult. The kitchen tends to attract people that maybe don't have the typical path with career, if that makes sense. People have found themselves in the kitchen because of creativity, and people have saved themselves, if that makes sense. I mean, I think I've heard a lot of stories of people that go into the kitchen and they're not in a great place, and cooking has really turned them around and helped them. And I do know a chef. He's an absolutely exceptional chef. He has a restaurant up in San Ynez, just got a Michelin star. And he used to work down in Manhattan Beach, and he would have stress attacks and literally collapse on the kitchen floor during, service, because he was so stressed out, and he would have fits. He would have actual epileptic fits from stress. And he eventually figured out he just needed to get out of the kitchen and take some time for a while, took 6 months off, and then ended up in San Ynez, opened this restaurant with a friend, and he's absolutely thriving now. I think it really depends on the situation in the kitchen, mental health, it's mental illness is everywhere. Mental struggles are everywhere. I think the kitchen can be a great place for people because of the creativity, and because, there's a lot of camaraderie in the kitchen. But in the past, there's also been a lot of really toxic environments coming from the kitchen. And I know we've probably all seen some of those films that, I don't know if you've seen the streaming show, The Bear, about the chef coming from the fine dining restaurant and opening a sandwich shop. And I have friends that are chefs, and they said they couldn't watch the full series because it gave them PTSD. So there is those toxic environments as well. And, we sometimes go into toxic environments in people's homes. And I've witnessed a client, and I'm just going to say this, I witnessed a client punch his wife. And it was absolutely terrifying. And my staff saw it too, and we didn't know what to do. It didn't work for him for very much longer. And that was a long time ago. There's always going to be toxicity in the kitchen, and it's going to affect people. So I think always being there and listening and offering your help, because that could really turn someone around, or try to get them help. It's not always the most perfect environment.
I think one of the things that I have seen, and I'll share a story in a minute, a kitchen works because of the structure, and that structure allows the freedom to create. If we were talking about it in business terms, it would be that solid structure of a military or a government that says there is flexibility in here, but you've got to stay within that structure. And that's sometimes where that creativity can come from. You haven't met Andrew, but he during the lockdown in New Zealand, when he had to leave Australia, he was on the last flight back into New Zealand before the country locked down. And he was stuck at home, didn't have a job, then managed to get a job doing painting and decorating, and went to a, let's just call it a very, very, very dark place.
Yeah.
And walked in one day and said, I'm going to cook. And he didn't just do, well, yeah, he didn't just, oh, I'll make an omelette. He grabbed Peter Gilmore's cookbook from Key.
I love Peter Gilmore.
Right.
Great chef. I've done cooking classes with him.
Right. So yeah, from Key, and went to the, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's 8 versions of chocolate. I think it's the dessert. And he spent the day in the kitchen and just did it. And Liz and I were like,
ganache cake. Oh my
yeah,
gosh, that's challenging.
holy crap! You just made that. So yeah, it was made, and then then it went on, and he got a job front of house, and then the chef didn't turn up one day, so said, well, I can do that, and jumped behind and got on with it, and then he was getting frustrated about the opportunity to grow, and so I said, well, just phone the local luxury lodge. And he did, and got a job, and that's where he's been. But continued to struggle with alcohol, with other substances until November, when he came with me to Beau's event, and he spent an evening with Jean-Louis Rodriguez, and came back and went, right, that's it, I'm done. And is now he's just about to leave that luxury lodge and move to a new role. But that was the power of the kitchen that gave him a level of structure that he fought against until he realized he couldn't fight against it anymore. And I mean, he's producing some it's great when he comes to visit. It's, what are we having tonight? So. He's of course it's great. He's my little boy, but he comes back and says, oh, this is what I'm going to do tonight, and it's just like, wow, this is just phenomenal. So I mean, I completely get it. It's we can be there for people, we can offer them help, but people have got to be ready to receive it. Unfortunately for Andrew, in that evening with Jean-Louis, he was open to listen, and that's what we can do for people, wherever it is. But in this conversation, in the kitchen, I think it's awesome.
I think you should be so proud of your son. It's so hard to bring yourself out of a dark place, especially during the pandemic. There were so many people that suffered. I think we all felt some form of darkness, or went to some form of darkness at some point during the pandemic, whether it was, my daughter, we dropped her off in Canberra in Australia in early January 2020, and then everything shut down. And of course, we couldn't get back to Australia from LA, and she couldn't come to us, so we didn't see her for 2 years. So that was terrifying for us, knowing that she, had to go somewhere, and she didn't stay at uni and that kind of thing. We couldn't get there for her. But I think the kitchen, because there is this mixed bag of people that go into the kitchen, and this level of creativity and open-mindedness, and not everybody has graduated high school or gone to college or done this. And so nobody really feels better than one another, unless you've got that toxic environment. But the kitchen's really great. And I'm a great believer in the success of great kitchens is support from the ground up. I believe from your kitchen hand, the person that's washing your dishes gets treated equally to the sous chef, the garde-manger, the pastry chef, whomever. Everybody's equal, and everybody gets treated the same way. And there's a level of respect between everybody. And then what happens is you actually start to build this family team. Everyone uses the word, oh, they're family, but you really do start to build this positive family environment where everybody trusts one another and everybody wants to see one another. And my kitchen hand, who's been with me for years, she's now become my kitchen assistant, and she backs me up with cooking. And she knows everybody that comes through the door. They know her. Like everybody's just great friends. And you probably saw at Bo and Dawn's house that night the way there was just three of us there, but you saw the way we operated, and we were a pretty tight team. Everything happens quickly, consistency, but you don't even really know that we're there, until we got bombarded by Bo.
You're there, but you're not there, and it all just flows and it works. I think I often someone's asked me, do you find businesses like family? And it's like community. Because if you call it a family, then you've got your mad drunk uncle who passes out and fights with everyone, versus a community where if you've got the boundaries, you move out. But I can see, whereas in a kitchen, actually it is a family. It has to be, because there is that passion, there's the relationship, there's the foundation of the relationship is through the food, which pulls everyone together. And that then, it then causes, when you get it right, and you clearly do, when you get it right, it means that when guests, or when you go into someone's home, then you're just part of it. I mean, of all the conversations I had lots of conversations that evening, but I loved our conversation, and it didn't, you were part of the whole thing, and it was just, this is great. This is why we're doing this. It works because of that building the family up from the background. But you're about to leave all this behind. What's next?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. And by the way, just thank you for noticing that too. When we were I've been working with Bo and Dawn for a while, and for you to feel comfortable around us and feel that way means everything to me, because that's what we work towards. And it's about making the guests feel comfortable and not feeling like there's anyone there, and they just have a good time. So, I've been doing this for 23 years now, and, I'm not getting any younger. So I've always kind of wanted to go back to Australia. My daughter's there. She's probably not going to come back to America. And she is studying architecture and wants to get, her master's, etc., and stay there. My dad was an architect, so that just makes everything so happy for me. So my husband and I have been talking about this for a really long time. So we've decided in September that we're putting the house on the market this week, and we're going to pack up and go back to Australia. And we're going to live 2 hours south of Sydney in a little town called Berry. And we're just going to buy a small property there, and we're going to start doing little cooking classes and introduce people to whatever we can find in our garden, all the local proteins, supporting the local businesses, introducing local wines, working with different chefs. Hopefully I'll get some friends out from LA to come and do some classes with me. And we're just going to start having some fun with food.
I love that. We're just going to buy a small property. We're just going to start doing, and take yourself back 20 years. I'm just going to go to cooking school. I sense that this is the beginning of something absolutely huge. And Liz and I will certainly be across to come and visit. And
you have to come and do classes with me.
I will indeed.
It'll be fun, I promise you.
Oh yeah, I can believe it. Yeah, I look forward to it. I think that that's great. And again, you've obviously created an amazing business with an amazing client list, and you're unreasonable enough to say, actually, do you know what? It's time for something next, and that's that's unstoppable.
It's like watching a great season of a TV show. You've always got to make the last episode really good, and when to go.
And this is something that's too often they go on for one season too long. You leave it when you're on a high. When I decided it was time to leave the British Army, I made the decision and left. But when people ask me, or when I talk about it even now, or people ask me about my military service, I still feel that excitement in the back of my neck about the joy and honour that it was to serve for over 2 decades. It means I left at the right time. So leaving when it's just, this is still great, and you'll always look back on it and go, that was awesome. It gives you the energy to move into whatever next, rather than that negative energy of, not enjoying this quite so much. So fantastic. I'm so excited.
And I love storytelling. I'm a great believer in storytelling with friends and gathering people and everyone having stories to tell. And I want my stories to be positive. They want my stories to be happy. I want them to be funny, because we have some really funny stories from 23 years of doing this. From earthquakes, 6.9 earthquakes in kitchens somewhere to, just crazy stuff. So I want to do these classes where we actually have a great time cooking. People learn something, they walk away with something, but everybody can tell stories and everyone can gather and just have a great time through getting their hands into food and getting into the garden. I love getting out into my garden and cooking together and then sitting down and having a really fantastic meal.
Sounds perfect. This has been an absolute joy, Justine. Thank you so much. Yeah, I had no idea how this would go, but I thought actually it's well worth the chance off the conversation we had. Last question that all my guests get, and you've had 30 minutes to think about it. If you were a superhero, who would you be?
Oh, come on. How could you not say Wonder Woman with the, invisible airplane? I
love that you picked up on the invisible airplane. That's great. Yeah,
I could go, if I was that strong and I was Wonder Woman, I could go and dig my garden out in one day and have it planted, and I could do all my reconstruction myself and build all sorts of things.
And then you could jump in your jet, fly up to Sydney for supper.
And I also think Wonder Woman too, because she's fiercely independent.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Justine, thank you so much for your time today. I look forward to seeing you in, well, if not LA, in Australia when you get back. Thanks a lot for being a part of Unstoppable Force TV.
Thank you so much for your time. This has been a pleasure.
Loved it. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that, but more importantly, I hope you got something from it. As I say to clients at our workshops, if you take one phrase from one sentence that was uttered during that podcast, then this has been of value. If you're looking for more content, jump across to www.unstoppableforce.co.nz or find us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. If you enjoyed this and you want more, we are live across New Zealand at events and workshops and sometimes in the US. If this has been valuable to become an unstoppable force, come along and reach beyond your limits.